All right, welcome to the Real Estate Talk Show with Raul Luna. Congratulations for making it happen, and congratulations because you took away, from your schedule, your time. You dedicated obviously this schedule, this time to be here today. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive right into it to make sure that we can compress time and get you what you came for. So first thing first, make sure that you're in a place where you completely can concentrate, focus to what we're going to be sharing here tonight. And then if there's any questions, we're going to leave them towards the end for questions and answers. Okay, so today I'm going to be covering the 5 vital activities that every real estate investor should adopt, as well as it's what's going to make him or her successful. Okay, so and throughout my years, throughout my career, I have noticed that just like you know how when you go to the doctor and they check your vital health signs, and when you go in, they check your respiratory, your heart rate, they check you pretty much everything, right? Well, but there's vital signs to your health. There's also vital signs, vital activity signs for the success in real estate investing. And that's precisely what I'm going to be covering here today. And hopefully you are paying close attention, because if you are doing this consistently and you're disciplined enough to just do it every single day, guess what? You're going to be able to see some greatness and some awesome results in your career. Whether you're new or whether you're experienced or whether you're just barely getting your feet wet, this is true. Every industry has their own vital signs. And what I'm going to be sharing today specifically for the real estate world. So, pay close attention, because vital sign number one, and I had I became really focused at it when I first started in my career almost 18, 19 years ago. And it's interesting because, it's one of those things where when you don't have a whole lot of time and you got a lot of time to be looking for deals, that's what happened to me, about 19 years ago. I didn't have a whole lot of time. So, I had a whole lot of time, I should say, and I didn't have a whole lot of business going on, that all of my time was invested into, finding deals, identifying deals, if not creating the deals that were not deals. So eventually it came very loud and clear that the first vital sign for every real estate investor or every real estate agent is becoming really great at and understanding the finding and the identifying of deals, of great deals, and that means, being able to see through the clutter, being able to sort what makes sense versus what doesn't make sense. And that usually will come with a lot of repetition. When you do a lot of it, it'll come second nature. It'll start becoming a second nature for you. So, a vital sign number one is finding and identifying great real estate deals. And a lot of it, it's interesting because I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go ahead and share it and show you, how we've actually gotten some of those deals. Like, I'm just going to go here straight to Craigslist. And if you notice, I'm going to go to my hometown, Modesto, and then I'm just going to go to the real estate by owner. And it's very interesting. You can do real estate by owner or both. Actually, you could even do both. Let's see here. I think you can do even both. Real estate by broker. I don't know. I'm just going to hit all here. And then, interesting enough, I'm just going to put here fixture just to see what we can find, or TLC or contractor special or whatever it is. And it's interesting because look, there's one here in Stockton. I don't know if it's a fixture, but we'll look into the pictures. And it seems like you need some help. So there you go. There's one right there, and it says super duper fixture special, right? Seller will consider owner financing, 25,000 down, 10% interest. There you go. There's one here. It's in Stockton, and the cool thing is, it seems like obviously, the seller will do seller financing there. So, anyways, that's one of the ways, and it's interesting because I'm sharing it straight flat out. Hey, does this seem like a good deal? I don't know yet. It's 149,000, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. But what I can tell you though is 2-bedroom, 1-bath here, 975. You know, and apparently it's from an agent. You know, it says no, non-owner occupied only. So apparently they're, you know, they're looking to sell it. You know, they're probably looking, yeah, 10% interest rate. That's probably why. You know, anyways, this is not like a super you know, messed up house, but you know, it could have a little bit of juice. But in itself, this is how, you know, we find deals. Now today I have a team that is doing this for us, that we've put together. But when I first started, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I did. I'm going to show you something a little bit interesting, just so that you can kind of see. Let me see if this allows me, just so that you can see that what I'm sharing with you, it's interesting. I'm just going to go to my account. All I ask is, don't look up my passwords, all right? And look, it says right there, right? Properties 180, right? But look how many pages, 28 pages. And I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna go to page number 28, and you could see, you know, post after post after post after post, you know, and this is, you know, taking its sweet time to reload, post after post after post after post. I don't know, I think we got thousands of posts. Yeah, a lot of them removed, a lot of them expired, a lot of them, you know, but it's interesting because, believe it or not, this is one of the ways that we actually ended up getting deals, and we still do. You know, the latest deal that we got off of this, off of doing what I just shared, you know, it was a powerful one. You know, it actually made over 200K. You know, and it was out of Craigslist. Now that's one way. That's just one way. Obviously, there's so many different ways. You know, you got to take the time to explore. You know, from the Zillow, the Redfin, the many other options, right? But just in itself, in Craigslist, you know, how many cities there are. You know, there are many. And guess what? All the postings that you saw there are pretty much all over, right? You name it. We do 8 different counties. We didn't start it that way, but what I'm sharing with you is that vital sign number 1 in the activity number 1, it's finding and identifying deals consistently. When you put your name out there and you expose yourself, you're going to start getting recognized. Okay. So anyways, I'm going to bring it back here. So that's one of the ways that I actually do it. Up until today, you know, there's still a team that basically checks you know, on many different, obviously, websites and so on and so forth. Okay. Among networking, among, you know, going to meetups, among many other different ways. But, you know, finding deals and identifying the great ones from the bad ones is going to be critical. Does it take time? Yes. I always suggest, you know, go ahead and get to know it. Go ahead and get to be generalistic on the knowledge of how to find them. And then eventually, if you value your time, you could always, you know, give the opportunity for someone to grow together with you. Okay. So keep this in mind. So keep that in mind, because ever since I started about almost 19 years ago, I've had a real estate assistant, okay, a real estate investing assistant, all this 19 years. And it's interesting because, you know, at the beginning of my career, my assistant was making more money than myself. So just so you kind of have a good understanding on how I got started. Why I did it that way? Because I understood that I couldn't be alone, just from the mere fact that there was a lot of activities that I shouldn't be doing, that I didn't want to do, that I didn't, you know, it wasn't the best use of the time, right? So vital sign number 2, or vital activity number 2, it's evaluate. You got to, you know, learn how to evaluate deals, and evaluating it from very different angles. And obviously it's a topic that we could literally spend hours, if not days, just talking about how to evaluate a property. And when it's a single family home, when it's a, you know, one single family property or one single family home, it's very, you know, should be simple. but you gotta, there's a lot of other things that you gotta play, that you gotta take into consideration and that you gotta play with. So evaluating is critical. You must learn it. You must, and the best way that I've actually come across, once again, it's going back and doing repetition of evaluating deals. I still remember when I was looking to dominate the San Francisco market. Even though I was born in San Francisco, in the real estate side, I wasn't too, I wasn't too well versed there. And the best way that I actually did it was by, driving the city as many times as possible that I was able to, going to every single property that I was a potential deal, evaluating it as if I was going to buy it, and just having a good understanding on the different different communities, and why will this property with this character is better than this other one, and things of that nature. But everything will come with a practice to it. So and even when you're new, I remember in San Francisco personally, and I'm going back to San Francisco because it's one of our main markets there. It took a while. It took me at least, I would want to say, what is it? Maybe 120 days, 180 days. Now, it would seem slow, but understand that when you have a clear purpose of where you're headed, what seems to appear slow is really not slow. To me, I see it more of, are you truly on the path of, preparation to make sure that you're going to lift off right when you need to lift off, or is it, or is it just a waste of time, right? So evaluation, you got to make sure that, especially on a changing market, like I feel that we're right now, we're in a cooling market, and that's just my own personal opinion. Guess what? I need to make sure that I'm evaluating deals slightly different than when the market was overheated or when the market was extremely hot. Right now, I gotta be conservative. I don't use the highest comps. You gotta look at every single detail, from the schools, the communities, from literally the square footage, how many stories, is there benefits on many different factors. Okay, so so it's really interesting to see, basically, that evaluation is one of those items, or one of those topics that literally you're going to have to learn through a lot of a lot of research, a lot of connecting with a lot of other people that they know their game at a really, really well level. Okay, I'll give you an example. Right now, we got a property in San Francisco that it's a 4-unit building that basically that has become so far one of our favorite projects. And guess what? I decided that the real estate agent who helped me at the beginning, who it wasn't the one that sold it to me. Picture this, okay? I went and asked for what should I say? I went and asked for knowledge from one of the number one, if not the number one, TIC agent. And it's interesting because, when I told him, I say, hey, listen, I'm currently buying this building. I heard that you're basically extremely good at, in this market, in this, type of strategy, in this type of properties. What do you think? What is your take? And it was interesting because I had an idea, and he told me, Raul, I personally think that you need to be at this price. Now, what I like about it is he was an independent party. He was not part of the transaction. So he was able to give me an unbiased, completely unbiased opinion. And I decided to follow it. And guess what? Now that we're selling the units, they're selling really well, even in a cool, in a cool market. And this is on the Sunset, in the inner Sunset area, ladies and gentlemen. So picture that, just so that you can understand, that evaluating, it takes a team. You can do it by yourself. I always like to get other people involved. So, in a nutshell, evaluating, you can start doing it by yourself, but you could also get it confirmed by sharing it with others that knows. The key here, that person must know their craft. If they don't know, you're only going to get an opinion. You're not going to get a true, sincere evaluation with a different set of eyes. All right. So that was vital sign activity number 2. Now, vital sign activity number 3, it's communicate. Learning to communicate, or communicating really well with the sellers, the buyers, the agents, you name it. Communication is key. And I'm not talking about learning this, neuro-linguistic programming type of stuff. I'm talking about basic communication, communicating from the heart, just basically, literally, being out there and just being able to communicate loud and clear. I'll give you another example. The 4-unit building. I listed one of the units with the agent that gave me that unbiased opinion. And, I communicated with him. I say, hey, listen, because I am a real estate investor and I have a broader, bigger reach, I just want you to know that I may well also be able to sell one of the units. When that happens, I don't want you to take it personal. I want to make sure that you understand that I'm also going to be seeking for, buyers. So if I do, I just want you to understand that, that's not part of the deal. So, he was good with it. He was great with that aspect. But once again, communicating, and that could go, all different directions, from, like I said, communicating with a real estate agent, communicating with the sellers, communicating all the time. Like today, I had to reach out to one of the sellers where we are in contract and kind of deliver the bad news. I found that, I found several things. I went to the city, the city building. I found obviously so many things that doesn't show that are permitted, doesn't show that, that we're done obviously according to code. And at the same time, there's like a storage area that doesn't meet the setback requirements, and I had to communicate it. So guess what? I had to deliver the bad news, and even though I don't like it, but I have to do it because it's just part of what it is. And guess what? You should always be, and I'm going to tell you this, if you want to thrive, if you want to succeed in your real estate business, you must know that consistently, in a disciplined way, either you or your team, either you or your assistant, or either you by yourself, consistently must be finding and identifying deals, must be evaluating, deals, and must be communicating whatever is it that you want to accomplish, either on the buying side or the selling side. And then that takes us to vital sign number 4, which is, negotiating. Negotiating, with either sellers, buyers, agents, you name it, whatever it is. So, one of the things that I always like to bring, especially when I'm working with real estate agents, is, hey, listen, if I bring the buyer and you represent me, you're going to help me with a commission, because if I actually brought the buyer and the buyer is my buyer and we have a listing agreement with you, well, guess what? I want you to be okay the fact that you're going to give me a little bit better terms because, hey, I'm just plugging in the buyer, you're just doing the rest, right? So that's one way of negotiating, negotiating on the sell, negotiating on the buy, which it's, super important. A lot of people, they shy away from the hard talks or the hard conversations or the negotiations aspects that you got to do. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, basically, I was working with one of our agents, and, we got a counter back on one of the San Francisco deals, and they counter back saying, hey, listen, we don't, we want to use our own title. We want to counter with a higher, obviously, number, and as well as, we don't want you to assign the contract. And interesting enough, I told them, listen, I don't care about the assigning. I can close the deal, so I don't care about that. I don't care about the title. I do prefer to use mine because I'm so used to it. It just, they know already, they got everything. But, if the price, if you're willing to give me the price, I'm willing to obviously, give you the terms. To me, the price needs to make sense. In other words, the numbers has to make sense. And that means that the price has to come down. Obviously, they decided that, you know, that was their best and final. I say perfect. I can't work with the best and final, but if something changes, obviously we're gonna be able to be open with that, all right? So, and there's a lot of back and forth in negotiations, you know. Rarely do you strike on the very first time. And if you're in this business, guess what? Be prepared, because you're going to be, you know, a lot of back and forth going on, right? And that takes me to vital sign activity number 5. The vital sign activity number 5 is submitting offers. Ladies and gentlemen, consistently, you got to be submitting offers consistently, not just talking about it, but submitting offers. And that means verbally, that means by email, that means in physical contracts, you know, and that must be consistent. The reason why I share this is because, once again, it's either you or your assistant, or you and your team, or you alone. Why it's very important, this 5 vital signs. The 5 vital signs is what's going to keep your business alive, is what's going to keep your success basically alive, for lack of a better term or word there. So, you know, people want to succeed, but the question the question that I ask you is, are you checking the vital signs or the vital activity signs that you should be, you know, focused day in, day out? And just like you have vital signs for life, we have vital signs for our business, and you should be treating them exactly the same, you know, the same way, or even, you know, at a higher scale. See, there are certain things that our body does on an automation basis, on an automated basis, like breathing, like your heart, like, you know, like your body tells you when you're hungry, when you're not, and things like that, right? So guess what? The business, on result-wise, in your bank account will tell you also when your business is thriving, when it's, you know, stagnant, when you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or things like that. So understand that, you know, you got to do a health check every so often, at least you should, you know, and I know that, you know, as you start caring for your health, you know, more and more, you know, awareness starts to develop regarding health. Well, guess what? You should care for your, you know, freedom, for your business growth, for your, you know, business success, and those are the vital, you know, activity signs that you should always be obviously focused on. So finding. Guess what? You gotta search the net. You gotta search the networks. You gotta search everywhere that you can search. Every human being that you come across with should know that you're a real estate investor, or that you're a real estate agent. Should know. Trust me, how I sold, this is the interesting thing, okay? I met this gentleman, it's a real estate agent by the name of Martin. And Martin, I met him, you know, I met him on, maybe at the beginning of this year. I think it was January or February of this year. And interesting enough, his client was an attorney who ended up buying one of our properties, and who ended up selling. The attorney sold us her condo. She bought, you know, he's a city attorney, and she bought our house. So we ended up flipping her condo. And then, interesting enough, you know, he is, you know, he's just starting in real estate. He's barely, you know, starting in real estate. And interesting enough, you know, I told him, I called him up and I said, hey, listen, Martin, do you happen to know of anyone, or do you have any buyer? And this was a call, okay? This was a call. Do you know of anyone who's looking to buy stunningly amazing, you know, ultimate, state-of-the-art, fully renovated, gutted to the pretty much almost to, you know, to the ground, with the exception of the studs and things like that, but everything brand new with mid to high finishes? It is just an amazing type of condo, but it's not a condo. It's a TIC. It's in the inner Sunset area. You know, do you happen to have a buyer, or do you know of anybody? And he went and looked at it. Didn't have a buyer, but he went and looked at it. Okay, but they didn't have a buyer. Now understand this. This goes back into, you know, communicating. This goes back into always being exposing yourself on the buying side, on the selling side, on the buying side, on the selling side. And I just happened to open, just a habit. I've made it a habit of opening my mouth whenever I'm selling something or buying something, like every single time. And guess what? Nothing happened. He said, hey, I don't have anybody, but if something happens, I'll let you know. And interesting, a week went by, nothing, never heard from him, and I've been doing this with many, not just with him, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, he sends me a text and says, hey, Raul, do you have any more units available? And I said, yeah, I got, I think I got 2, I mean, 1 for sure, potentially maybe 2, I don't know, and it was interesting because he says, I got a buyer, but, the buyer basically, I want to go ahead and take and show it to them. He went and showed it to him. It took him about maybe plus or minus 2 weeks, maybe to 2.5 weeks. And then he got him qualified. The buyer wasn't qualified. I didn't know much about the buyer. I knew that they went and saw the unit, they liked it, and then they came back and he spoke to his future wife, and then they came back and saw it together, and then they submitted all the documents to the only 5-6 lenders that do this type of properties, which is TIC, or tenancy in common. And then I would ask him, I said, hey, listen, are your buyers interested? He says, yes, Raul, but I want to make sure that when I submit an offer, it's a for sure deal. I don't want to submit it and then I have to go through all of these processes. And I really like that. I really, truly like that. And then eventually the offer came in on a Sunday. After about almost 2.5 weeks, the offer came in. It was as clean as you could ever possibly think. Now, picture that for a moment. Picture that. I communicated. That communication saved about 2.5% in commission for a close to $900,000 sell. You're talking about, just by opening my mouth, it was an instant $20,000 plus made that I didn't know where was it going to come from. Okay. Now, if that's true on the selling, if that's true on the selling, do you think that's also true on the buying? Of course. Absolutely. So 5 vital activity signs that you must consistently, all the time, be aware and be doing, ladies and gentlemen. Finding and identifying, evaluating the deals, communicating with people on the buying and the selling side, negotiating the deals, and as well as submitting offers. When you're doing that and when you're being sincere to yourself, you will start noticing that other people will notice you because you decided to be noticeable, because you made that decision to be noticeable. So if there's any questions, I'm going to go ahead and open it. And if you want to continue learning about real estate and learning about this, and you don't have yet our program, there's a 2-day program that we recorded professionally called how to find freaking awesome real estate deals. You can go to levelupnowacademy.com/F as in Frank, A as in Apple, D as in Delta. I already posted it there to all, oops, I'm sorry. I think it was private. Okay. It is posted there that you can actually buy the program for 2 full days, that I actually dive very, very deep into, the 5 areas, the 5 activities, the 5 vital signs that I just covered. And guess what? Go ahead and do it, ladies and gentlemen, because I know how powerful this information and knowledge is if you really seriously apply it, right? And then never worry about, you may be having some questions and things like, well, Raul, what if I don't got the money, or I don't got the credit, I don't, or I don't have the job, or I don't have this, or whatever, right? And I can tell you this, never allow the negative stories to block you from reaching high levels of success. Because if you find a freaking awesome, great deal, come and talk to me, send me a private message, whatever it is, ladies and gentlemen, we can work together. Better yet, I can promise you that there's many other investors who are willing to take your deal. But at the same token, I am here. I got students that brings me deals, deals that were literally, I call them impossible deals, because that's how they view them. That's how they view them to begin with. To me, it's what it's impossible to you, I make it possible if there's reasonable people. Whatever is impossible can be made possible when there's reasonable people, right? So anyways, let's get started with a couple of questions because I have a training here that I must attend. Is it a better idea to go after low-hanging fruit? Was it on the market? Yeah, I go with both fruits, Ms. Lorraine. I go with the low-hanging, the difficult hanging, the green hanging, you name it. But is it worth a while? Yeah, I think you should. And this particular property was on the market. It was October of last year that I bought this property. I think it was earlier. I think maybe September of last year that I bought it. And I'm not gonna share the numbers because it's irrelevant. It's not, I don't want to brag about how much we make. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to, solve your issues or problems that you may be going through it. So that's why I don't share, because I know that the other day people were telling me, hey, Raul, why don't you share the numbers like you used to share them? I said, listen, man, it comes a point in life, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if I made $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. What truly matters is what you can make, what you should be after, right? So sharing with another person is an excellent thing to do. Absolutely. I think sharing, what other people think about the evaluation, and once again, it's not just sharing with anybody, because you can share with your uncle that doesn't know anything or think that knows it, and he's just going to confuse the heck out of it. When I share with other agents or with other people, they better know their craft. Otherwise, there's no reason for share. There's really more of a waste of time if the person doesn't know, okay? Anyways, thanks for the awesome information. Raul, how do you evaluate a burnt house? Is there anyone that could buy a burnt house? I buy burnt houses, Ms. Lorraine, and let me tell you, the way you evaluate depending on the damage of the house. I'll give you an example. When I evaluate a burnt house, and if it's intense damage, I just evaluate it as in building it brand new. I'm just evaluating it as if I'm building brand new. We did a burnt house. Remember, we did one in Menlo Park. We just sold it not too long ago, okay, in partnership with Miss Daisy. And guess what? It was burnt to the ground, basically. The studs were good, but we decided to just do it brand spanking new. So we budgeted $225 a square foot. We spent basically that and slightly more. So depending on the percentage of how bad it is, if the sheetrock is still there because the fire department determined that it's not, that is still structurally sound, that's a whole different story. But when in doubt, just put more into it. It's not like you have to be perfect there, okay? So if the house is not all the way down, how would you evaluate the cost? Once again, ask for if it was reported to the fire department, ask for the report. That should tell you, in what conditions it should be. Another thing is bring an architect. I would bring an architect. I would actually bring, a GC and an architect so that I could go ahead and just have a good understanding and a solid idea. That's how I would do it. That's how I've done it. And I think that's the way that I suggest for you to do it, right? Anyways, yes, I did get the fire report. Hey, send it over, Ms. Lorraine, and I'm more than happy to take a quick peek at it and see what is it that you're facing with, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I ran out of time. Thank you so very much for being here with me today. We'll get to see you next Wednesday, 5 p.m., and go ahead and make it a great one. Go ahead and crush it. And remember, you're one freaking awesome real estate deal away from changing your finances. Congratulations. Get to see you next week. Thank you.